So I'm talking about the chemical safety stuff. What I've got to start with here is a demonstration of some products, some that you may be familiar with, some that you may not be familiar with. And what I want you to do in a minute is to vote for which one you think is the least hazardous to the person using it. Now, it's sort of leading us into the topic of how do we tell which products are safe, which ones are less safe. So if I go through these, in a minute I'll ask you to vote. You get one vote each. Now we've got Mr. Muscle, that's an oven cleaner, pressure pack. We've got WEEDMASTER Duo, which is a glyphosate product, so similar to Roundup, same sort of product. We've got eucalyptus oil. We've got Zero Woody Weeder, so it's not the traditional Zero. There's a whole range of Zeros these days, so this is one of the range of Zeros, but it's a home garden pack for woody weeds. We've got some hair colour, which some of you guys may use, I don't know. Yeah. We've got Tilt, which is a commercial fungicide. Until a few months ago I was a cherry grower and we used Tilt quite regularly in the orchard for brown rot control in cherries. And the last one here is Rat Sack, which you're probably familiar with. So back to the voting, one vote each. So what I want you to vote is for the product that you think is least hazardous to the person using it. Least hazardous, yep. So who votes for Mr. Muscle? Who votes for the WEEDMASTER, the glyphosate herbicide? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We've got to stop soon. I'm running out of toes and fingers. So we've got 9 for that. Who thinks the eucalyptus oil is the least hazardous? Yeah, about 9. Did you vote twice? 9 or 10, depending on whether we let you vote twice. The Zero home garden woody weed killer? No one? Okay. Hair dye? A couple of those, yep. The Tilt fungicide used in the orchard? No one. And the Rat Sack? No one thinks Rat Sack is the safest. Okay. The answer is this one. So those of you who voted for this, you can... No, you can't leave yet, but you get brownie points, yep. So it leads us to a couple of things. One is, how on earth do we know? So you go off down to the garden centre to buy some chemicals, or the supermarket for that matter, because a lot of this stuff is in the supermarket. How do you know, or how can you choose a product that's less dangerous than another one, or less hazardous? The other one is, a lot of these things, like this is a commercial farm, bush care sort of product, so is that one. But these are all the sort of stuff you like to have around the home, and yet they're actually quite hazardous compared to some other things which we might think, because farmers using them, are dangerous. So that leads us then into the subject of signal headings, and if I find one here that's got a fairly large print, a lot of the products that we use, the substances, will have at the front of what we call the main panel, where the brand name is, up the top there will be a word in bold capital letters, either black or red, and it will say, in this case, poison. That one it says caution, and this one says dangerous poison. And that indicates the signal, that's the signal heading, and that indicates the poison schedule that product is allocated to by the government who does that sort of stuff. And there is a fourth category, so we've got caution, poison, dangerous poison, and we have other products that don't even have a signal heading. So there's one that doesn't have a signal heading. It's still been assessed by the same system, but it doesn't have that signal heading. So what does it mean? What I might do, if I just toss a few, that one's actually got something in it, so I better not throw that one, but who's good at catching? Yeah. And that one's got stuff in too, so I better not throw that. And I won't throw that one either. I'll give you that one up there. Which is the most important? Okay, can I come back to that in a moment? Yep. Okay, now you've got a handout that's called something. What is it called? That one there with the pretty picture on the front. Understanding pesticide chemical labels. Now, this is a wonderful little folder, production, produced by the APVMA. The APVMA, the Australian Pesticides and Medicines Authority, is the government authority in Canberra that allows commercial sale of chemicals or legal sale of chemicals in Australia. So they regulate which chemicals you're allowed to have, and they have a hand in deciding what the category, the poison schedule is of the products that are actually on sale. If you turn to page 4 in there, at the bottom of that page, A1, the signal heading. And there are 4 categories there for the sorts of products that we're talking about here. Oh, yes, sorry, don't pass them around. Don't eat them. Okay, 4 categories. So if there is no signal heading, and I've got one of those, no, yes, I've still got one of those here. There is no signal heading up the top. That product, according to this, the chemical is unscheduled. It's relatively safe to the person using the chemical. However, and you've always got to say this, never treat any chemical lightly, as it still may affect their health, and we don't know what might come to light in X years' time. The reality is that the final experiment on safety of chemicals happens when you and I have been using them for 20, 30 years. The companies can't do that sort of long-term feeding study, so they do as much as they can. It's been approved by the government, but sometimes things slip through and we find out about them later. And thalidomide would be a good example of that. It was a wonderful chemical, wonderful drug, until people have been using it for a while, and then suddenly you find out all these things that are wrong with it. Okay, if the signal heading, so if it doesn't have a signal heading, it's considered to be very, very low in hazard. Safe, I suppose, is the right word. If the signal heading is caution, it's in Schedule 5. So if you've got a pen, you might want to put just an S5 next to that. The numbers aren't a big deal, but we sometimes talk about Schedule 5, Schedule 6 chemicals or poisons, and if you write it in there, then you've got that cross-reference. If a product is in Schedule 5, if it's got caution on the top, like this one here, it's considered to be low hazard, and it's a fair chance that it's a skin or eye irritant, for example, not terribly toxic. If we take glyphosate, for example, glyphosate is a weak acid. If you get it on your skin, get it in your eyes, it can burn you, but it's actually less toxic in the grand scheme, less toxic than common salt. Not that I suggest you use this instead of salt on your fish and chips, but it is, if you had pure glyphosate, it still is rated as a lower toxicity than common salt. Now that's only 36% glyphosate in there. By the time you dilute that 1 to 100 in a knapsack, the stuff you're spraying is really pretty safe. Again, don't be blasé with it, but in the big picture, let's not get paranoid about using glyphosate. Has anybody else out there got a Schedule 5 product with caution on it? Okay, you've got triferine, which is a home garden fungicide used on roses and stuff. You've got Extra Cool, Tectaloid Extra Cool, which is a radiator coolant. You've got XL Pet, which is just a shampoo for dogs and cats. Tarzan Script, we've all got Tarzan Script around, and you've got a toilet cleaner. Yep. So they are all Schedule 5. No. The government has chosen not to put the schedule number on any products, and there's probably a good reason for that, because the scheduling system actually goes from 1 up to 9, and what we're talking about here is a narrow band of products in the middle. Schedule 1 doesn't have anything in it. Schedules 2, 3 and 4 are all pharmaceuticals. Then you get up to Schedule 8, that's dangerous drugs of addiction like morphine, and there's a Schedule 9 as well, which is restricted substances. So it doesn't follow 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They get worse and worse. It's a bit of a mishmash. Okay, so caution, low hazard in the big picture, but still got to be careful. Could be a skin or eye irritant. If the signal heading is poison, we're starting to get into products that are actually toxic. So if you get enough of them, they'll start causing poisoning to your body. I probably didn't give any Schedule 6s out there, do I? I've kept them all up here, I think. So those products are all Schedule 6 poisons. And you'll notice that there's only one of them, which you would call a farm chemical that farmers use. The rest are home type products. In fact, I've been told that's a 50ml bottle of eucalyptus oil. There's enough eucalyptus oil in there to kill 3 adults if they drink the stuff. Now, we've all rubbed it on our kids' tummies. The vape is not a great problem. It's not absorbed through the skin terribly readily, but you drink the stuff, you want to get off the hospital pretty quick. Tea tree oil is the same, both natural products, but concentrated, very toxic. Mothballs are also Schedule 6. If you've got a kid who thinks they're picking up a mothball and it's actually, or think they're picking up a cool mint and it's actually a mothball and they eat it, again, you want to get to hospital pretty quick. And then there's another category called dangerous poison. Now, that doesn't mean that this one is a safe poison. It just means that the next one up is particularly dangerous, and you've got that one down there if you just want to hold that up for us to see. So that's a Schedule 7 product, and the signal heading is dangerous poison. Thank you. Now, Schedule 7 products are not available to the general public. In fact, the scheduling system, products are put into a schedule depending on how much, or the restriction or the availability of that product to the general public. So that one is very, very restricted. You have to actually do a course and get an accreditation to even be able to purchase that. In fact, there's another piece of legislation that says you have to have the accreditation to use it. So there's two bits of legislation in South Australia that require you to have an accreditation to purchase and use that product. So that's the scheduling system. So when you go home tonight, if you're game, have a look in your medicine chest or underneath the kitchen sink or the laundry sink or out in the garden shed, and just have a look at what you've got there, because some of it might be quite nasty, and you might want to think about how you store some of those things.